It was the winter of 1526 when Anne and Henry locked eyes, filled with passion. She was now 25, a confident, beautiful young noblewoman. Henry was a 35-year-old dashing, strong, handsome king who could not get enough of Anne's feminine essence and boldness. The two monarchs eagerly demonstrated their masterful skills in the art of flirtation. They were both good at it. The banter, intelligent, witty one-liners bounced endlessly throughout the court. The admiration these two possessed for each other heated up the cold walls and corridors of the English royal palace. Today, let's continue the Anne Boleyn story. Welcome to Womenz Thoughts. Let's get started. Henry VIII was born in 1491 to the parents of King Henry VII and Lady Elizabeth of York at the Palace of Placentia in Greenwich, England. He was the third child out of 6 siblings. In 1509, Henry's father died from tuberculosis. As a result, his son Henry succeeded him as King of England at just 17 years of age. Not long after, Henry honored his father's wishes before he died to marry Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish monarch. So, I briefly stated in the first video, during Henry's quest to pursue Anne Boleyn, he had a whole wife, not to mention a daughter too, by the name of Mary I. Let's continue. Over 14 years, the married couple had a happy, respectful, loving marriage until Henry became disappointed and disgruntled with Queen Catherine's complications, providing a living male heir. Henry's quest to pursue Anne and finally has his air quotes away like all the other women in the court was a failure. Anne resisted his advances, which drove him insane. The king was in love or in lust. However, he needed to make a hard decision like never made before in the royal palace. During this time, Europe was overwhelmingly Roman Catholic and adhered faithfully to the church laws. In fact, divorce was absolutely shunned upon and not an option for married couples. So, what's a king to do? Let's move on. It appeared at the time his, air quotes, love interests might have had a bright idea. Ultimately, Anne gained Henry's full attention as well as trust and introduced him to Christian reform documents. Anne had studied these documents for almost a decade. With that being said, Henry scheduled a visit to Rome for a papal meeting. However, he made a failed attempt to reason with the papacy on behalf of his unhappy marriage to Queen Catherine. Consequently, Anne's strong influence on the weakening of Henry's own Catholic faith began to wear thin within the royal court. The salacious rumors surrounding Anne's presence in the king's life immediately began to take form. So, around this time, Henry also quietly sent the grieving Queen Catherine and their daughter Mary I into exile at another palace. Let's proceed. Regardless of the small whispers at the royal dining table during banquets, Anne and Henry openly carried on as a royal couple. Meanwhile, the air quotes real queen and her daughter Mary I sat in exile on house arrest charges. It is now 1530, 4 years into Anne Boleyn and King Henry VIII's unconventional declaration of their love and commitment. The king has made a major decision to break away from the Roman Catholic Church and become a new Christian Protestant. In addition, he implemented the divine right of king law. So, this law allowed the monarch to have direct authorization directly from God. The same powers parallel as the church. Let's move on. Together, the couple has made history and forever changed the trajectory of the Western world. As a result, Henry and Anne finally planned to live their life together without the stain of sin. The couple later planned to marry right away. So, Anne and Henry's plans to marry were not celebrated throughout the court. And as far as commoners, Anne was publicly shamed for crashing Queen Catherine's marriage and family. Today we call women like this, you guessed it, homewreckers. Let's continue. Meanwhile, on November 14th, my birthday by the way, in 1532, Anne and Henry had a quiet, secret wedding ceremony. Right after Anne and Henry's wedding, Queen Catherine was immediately stripped of her title as Queen Consort. Anne was now crowned the new Queen of England. So, during this time, Queen Catherine refused to give up her title as Queen of England, regardless of her new status. Let's continue. Furthermore, Anne failed to engage and make amends with Henry's firstborn, Mary I, whom he had with Catherine. As mentioned earlier, Mary, still in exile, was ordered to live in a separate palace far away from her mother. Such cruelty. Mary absolutely wanted no parts with this new marriage. I don't blame her. So, as far as the present scuttlebutt throughout the royal court, villages and towns, people were talking about Anne's true intentions regarding the king's newfound faith in Protestant Christianity. Was she a true Christian believer herself, or was she a selfish, ambitious, egotistic, spoiled monarch? Has she bit more than she could chew? Let's move on. Later that following year, Anne was pregnant with her and Henry's first child named Elizabeth I. The baby was born on September 7, 1533. Baby Elizabeth was christened and named after both paternal and maternal grandmothers. Despite the new healthy child Anne bore, the baby was born prematurely. Thereupon, the English ambassador, Eustace Chapery, claimed Anne Boleyn practiced witchcraft due to the child's small size and low birth weight. Anne's super sharp tongue, wit, and confidence was alluring to the king earlier in his quest for her attention and affection. But here's the catch: as a mistress only. It was reported on a few occasions the queen openly patronized her own uncle during a banquet dinner. So, remember, this was a part of his game he played with Anne prior, air quotes, prior to their marriage when she was a baddie. However, today, her assertiveness indicated his lack of leadership and manhood to his peers in the royal court. Let's move on. With that being said, now as his queen by his side, Henry needed Anne to display a more pious, soft, demure, ladylike figure, in contrast to another competing monarch trying to be loud and heard. In addition to all the mounting bad omens, Anne's parents were disappointed. Their queen daughter's firstborn was a princess and not a prince. So, although the Boleyns are nobles too, I get the feeling they were serious social climbers within the court. Anne's ability to produce a male heir was imperative to her parents' status and reputation. Let's proceed. Welcome to the Thought Cafe. I just ordered a tiramisu dessert and some hot tea. In the meantime, let's complete the discussion on Anne Boleyn's feminine archetype. This time, let's cover the shadow side of her traits. As Anne's story unfolds, wait. I just want to say in Anne's defense, let's take into account she was super young and inexperienced involving the affairs of being married to an alpha man of great power and wealth. In Anne's bio, Henry clearly alluded he desired his now queen to scale back on her assertiveness and manage mannerisms. So this is what I was wondering. Where were Miss Boleyn's mother or aunties to school her on her new powerful role as queen, married to a man who is typically expected to be an alpha king? Here's the thing. She's smart, but couldn't find her way out of a paper bag dealing with, like I said prior, youth. Now, ladies, pay attention because we don't want to make the same mistake Miss Boleyn made. Now, the list we will examine is only for men in your life that have earned the right of honor, respect, and love, whatever that entails. Let's begin covering the shadow archetypes. Exhibit A, the lover. Anne's flirting should have been special for her man to witness only, not for the entire royal court. Exhibit B, the sage. Highly intelligent, however, Anne did not demonstrate the proverbial art of, air quotes, being the neck while her king remained the head. So ladies, meaning we can be brilliant and share our ideas. However, it would be wise to subtly create the seed of thoughts while he execute the plans. Finally, Exhibit C, the huntress. Never, ever step on a man's ego or manhood in public, especially in the presence of his cohorts. Because Anne was very competitive, a dominant trait in the huntress, she was known to openly challenge the authorities of high officials in the court, as well as publicly patronize her own uncle. Out of respect, it is wise to privately discuss disagreements with people across genders. She was a bit of a spitfire, wouldn't you agree? Let's get back to her story. One fall morning in 1536, the king and queen got news that Catherine of Aragon had quietly passed away. Gossip during that time spread like wildfire, in which people believed the previous queen was poisoned, ordered by the king and queen. Fortunately, today's contemporary scientific findings discovered Catherine of Aragon passed away from a rare heart disease. Surprisingly, the couple celebrated her passing by wearing yellow, a significant color symbolizing happiness. So, where were these people, PR people, as we say today, so distasteful? Ugh. Obviously, these two did not know how to read the room and were intoxicated on their own supply of arrogance. Let's move on. Furthermore, in addition to all the news, Anne experienced a miscarriage after physically going into a rage crashing out, witnessing her maid of honor named Lady Jane Seymour sitting on the king's lap during one of many banquets. As a result, the current tea around the court was that the king was pursuing another mistress and possibly another queen as Anne's replacement. That same year, the incriminating voices of Anne's possessiveness and control on the king thickened. Unfortunately for Anne, one of her loyal lady-in-waiting confirmed the rumor to be true about Henry having roaming eyes for another young noblewoman. If anything couldn't get worse for Anne, her husband is now publicly claiming he has been bewitched into a marriage with her. In fact, rumors have been swirling for some time by male authorities in the king's court that Anne practiced witchcraft. It appeared Henry also believed Anne could not provide him a son because she was cursed. The most horrific rumor was that Anne was planning to plot an assassination attempt against the king with her supposed lovers. All the hideous accusations finally took form and shape. The queen was now being set up for treason. So it looks like Henry was looking for an out with his second marriage. Let's continue. Meanwhile, Henry was suffering from a chronic illness he acquired after a prior jousting accident, which caused him to have unpredictable aggressive mood swings. Not to mention all the embarrassing stories about Anne he heard in his inner circle, with more outlandish accusations. At this moment, Anne was blamed for all the king's poor conduct. In the spring of April of 1536, Anne Boleyn was accused of adultery. The Royal English Court arranged a high-ranking all-male committee led by her husband, the king. Orders were handed down by Henry to hunt down all the accused men. They were instructed to arrest and imprison the men who supposedly visit his wife's bedchambers. One of the main men under the king on the committee was a noble named Thomas Cromwell. Earlier, Cromwell was a strong advocate and ally to Anne until Anne became queen. Further resentment set in between the two due to what may seem like Anne's meddling into the areas of court business. Notably, Cromwell was not the only man in the royal court who felt Anne should not be allowed in spaces held by male authority. In fact, often during banquet dinners, Cromwell and Anne publicly had major disagreements with the direction of England's foreign policy and the redistribution of the church wealth. The names of male monarchs within the royal court read like a long, dirty laundry list of random men who frequent the court. Some low on the social hierarchy and some high up. In fact, one man who was known to have a strong affection for Anne for years, Thomas Wyatt, was on the list. However, he was shortly released due to his family connections with Sir Cromwell. Unfortunately, several men were beheaded on baseless charges. The most diabolical and cruel sentence was Anne's younger brother George Boleyn, charged and imprisoned for allegations of incest with his queen sister. Early May, Anne Boleyn was finally arrested. The young, beautiful monarch was a mere shell of herself. She looked to have been extremely thin. She had gaunt, hollow cheeks that were once rosy, her eyes now set far back in her frail face. So, I have to mention, by now, Henry had already moved Lady Jane Seymour into his private palace. Let's proceed. During the walk of shame to the Tower of London, now Anne's new place of residence, she desperately ordered those standing around her for information regarding the whereabouts of her father and her dear brother George. So, some folks within the royal court, as well as the commoners, did not share any mercy for Anne because of her involvement with the cruelty done to Catherine of Aragon a few months back. They may have thought her convictions and karma served her well. Let's move on. The official charges on the Queen was indeed treason and incest. Unfortunately, several men who were originally arrested in the first roundup were beheaded at the Tower of London on, once again, baseless charges. Sadly, on May the 17th, Anne's beloved brother George was executed. Later that month, during Anne's court hearing, while sitting on the stand, Anne was appalled at all the people she thought she could trust, including her lady-in-waiting, Countess of Worcester, testifying against her queen. She stated on many occasions she witnessed Anne having an affair within the royal palace. Moreover, Sir Henry Percy, who was now the 6th Earl of Northumberland, the man Anne was betrothed to a few years ago, however, wedding plans fell through, painfully mourned during the entire court session. When the final verdict was handed down, guilty, he fainted and had to be carried out the courthouse. The mourning was so painful and stressful, Sir Percy never sired an heir. On May 19th, 1536, early morning, Anne Boleyn prepared for her own execution. As Anne left her cold, wet prison chamber, she walked slowly up the stairs, then finally turned to softly say her final goodbyes to her sobbing ladies of the royal court. Wearing a nicely tailored all-blue gown, her wispy hair tucked away in a fitted white head cap called a coif, and her eyes closed, the look on her face was as if she had already come to terms with her fate. And then proceed to whisper with a repetitious prayer, saying, quote, Jesu, meaning Jesus, receive my soul. O Lord, God have pity on my soul. End quote. Within seconds, the act was done. So, the day of her execution, Henry waited at his palace for news to make sure the act was done quickly so he could proceed to marry Lady Jane Seymour in just 11 days. In fact, he arranged for a skilled swordsman that day for a swift execution. Let's continue. In contrast to the king and the accuser's fatal betrayal of Anne, Thomas Cranmer, a reasonable, notable man who was a theologian, leader of the English Reformation, and the Queen's faithful ally to the end, mournfully exclaimed right after Anne's passing, quote, she who has been Queen of England on earth will today become a queen in heaven, end quote. With every storm, there is a silver lining. Despite the complex and dysfunctional relationship Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII developed, these two monarchs together produced an iconic Western ruler ever known. Their daughter, Queen Elizabeth I. Providing that notion, Elizabeth inherited her father's noble presence, leadership, and dedication. In contrast, Elizabeth also inherited her mother's feminine allure, resilience, and boldness. With both parents' intellect, quick wit, and political acumenship and commitment to her subjects, she became the people's queen. England's first known female superpower, who ushered her people into a new paradigm for over 45 years on the throne, reigned with precision and purpose. In a way, Elizabeth's mother, Anne Boleyn, truly risked it all and made fatal mistakes. However, she left important life lessons for her future heir to hopefully correct the past errors. Like most women in the past and present, Anne Boleyn was not perfect and definitely not a saint. As a final statement, in a proverbial sense, like most mothers' sentiments, she crawled so that her only child, Queen Elizabeth I, could run a modern nation to greatness. Thank you for tuning into part 2 of the Anne Boleyn story. Fun fact, the Boleyn bloodline continues to sit on the throne today via her sister Mary Boleyn's descendants. Of course, Anne's child, Queen Elizabeth I, never bore a child. And as we can see, the name Elizabeth, whether a full name or nickname, have been a family legacy for over 5 centuries. What were your thoughts on today's video? Please leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so when I upload the next video, you will be notified. As always, because everyone has a story. Ciao!